Welcome in another very special edition of What's Right with Nick Wright as we continue our countdown of the 50 greatest players of the last 50 years in the NBA. We are already now to the top 7. Last week, we did number 8, Akeem Olajuwon, number 9, Shaquille O'Neal. The top 7, you guys know who the 7 guys are, obviously. The question is, in what order will they come? Number 7 is a guy whose apex was one of the 5 best apexes we've seen in NBA history. So why is he number 7 and not higher? Came into the league a little old, left the league a little early. But while he was there, from the moment he stepped on the court, was one of the best players in the league and stayed like that for a full decade.
Number 7, Larry Bird.
So here's Larry Bird, top line of the resume. 9-time first-team All-NBA, 1-time second-team All-NBA. He is a 3-time MVP, and those MVPs came in 3 consecutive years. The only person eligible for this list to win 3 MVPs in a row. The only others to do it ever are Wilt and Russell, and those guys are too old for the list. By the way, from his rookie year to 1988, he was top 4 MVP voting all 9 seasons. And the way it went for him was he had 3 straight second-place finishes, followed by 3 straight first-place finishes. So from a 6-year stretch of 81 to 86, not only did his team win the title, two of the, from the 1980 finals, how about that? 1980 finals to the end of the 86 season, Larry Bird collected 3 league MVPs, 2 finals MVPs, 3 second-place finishes, and 3 championships. He's 3-time All-Defense. He invented the 50-40-90 club, and he did it twice. And he's one of only 3 guys in the last 50 years to average at least 24 and 10 for his career. The other 2 are Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Karl Malone. Everyone remembers Larry Bird, the iconic scorer, the first true great deep shooter of any era, because he came into the league around the advent of the three-point line, didn't shoot, 10% as many threes as guys shoot today, but he was the first star player that it was truly a weapon for. What I think younger folks don't understand was an exceptional rebounder, averaging 10 rebounds a game for his career, and one of the greatest passers ever. His court vision was, in the 80s, surpassed only by Magic and Isaiah. That's it. So that's Larry Bird top line resume stuff. Now we will get to the playoffs as we do with everybody on this list. At this point of the list, we must go year by year by year. So in the playoffs, again, top line, 3-time champ, 2-time finals MVP, 5-time finalist. So let's just start with his rookie season. 1980, his rookie year. To close out his first playoff series ever, 34, 10, and 7 to beat Moses Malone and Houston. That is his first playoff series ever, 34, 10, and 7. He averaged 22, 14, and 4 in a round 2 loss to Dr. J in Philly, and had 31 and 12 in the Celtics' only win of that series. So that's Larry Bird. Couple interesting things that you're going to hear there. One is, Houston was in the East. They were in the East. There were some weird geographical alignments in the early 80s. But also, the guy averaged 22, 14, and 4 as a rookie in round 2 against Dr. J. 1981, his first championship. How does he get there? We already mentioned guys on this list that were on that team. Kevin McHale, but McHale was barely a contributor on this team. Tiny Nate Archibald was an important contributor on this team, but the best player on this team, without question, was Larry Bird. With respect to Cedric Maxwell, who we'll get to, we won't get to on the list, but was an important part of the finals. 1981, averages 24, 13, and 7 in a round 1 sweep of Chicago. In the Eastern Conference Finals, again against Philly, the team that knocked him out last year, year 2 Larry Bird averages in the Eastern Conference Finals 27, 13, and 5, avenging the previous year's loss, beating Philly in 7 games. By the way, and this is one of my favorite sliding doors moments in NBA history. They're down 3-1 in that series. They come back and win game 5, 6, and 7. And if you remember our Dr. J discussion, the Celtics won games 5, 6, and 7 by a combined 5 points. They won those games by 2, 1, and 2. If they don't win those games, one of those games, Dr. J probably has an extra ring. Larry maybe only has 2, and he's thought of quite differently. So those were critical moments. He's in year 2. How did they win them? Game 5, Larry Bird had, facing elimination, 32, 11, 5, 3, and 2. Game 6, he had 25, 16, 4, 2, and 2. And game 7, 23, 11, 5, 5, and 2. And then game 6 of the finals against Moses in Houston with the title on the line, had 27, 13, and 5, averaged for the series 15, 15, and 7. Did not win finals MVP. I think that's a pretty questionable one for Larry not to have won it, but he didn't. 1982, Philly got him back. Dr. J was, at this moment, I think, still a better player than Larry Bird. Dr. J was on the downswing and Larry was on the upswing, but still Dr. J got him back. Bird averaged for the series 18 points, 14 rebounds, 7 assists. They lose in 7 in the Eastern Conference Finals. 1983, remember Sidney Moncrief earlier on the list when I said most underrated player of the 80s? He was swept by Sidney Moncrief in Milwaukee in round 2. For the playoffs that year, 21 points, 13 rebounds, 7 assists for the playoff averages. And now we're to the stretch of the 3 straight MVPs. 1984, wins league MVP. For the playoff run as a whole, 28 points, 11 rebounds, 6 assists on 52% shooting. Round 2 against the Knicks and Bernard King, another guy on our list, averages 30, 11, and 7, including the playoff game of his life up to that point. Game 7 against the Knicks in round 2. Larry Bird had 39 points, 12 rebounds, 10 assists. In that series, he scored 35 plus 3 times. The next round, got revenge on Moncrief and the Bucks in the Eastern Conference Finals. And then in the finals, against Magic and Kareem and the Lakers, 29 and 21, a 29-point, 21-rebound game, down 2-1 in game 4 to even the series. Followed that up with a 34-point, 17-rebound game to go up 3-2. And they win the title in 7. He's finals MVP. They have 2 overtime wins in that series. So that's one that, man, another sliding. So 2 of his first 3 titles easily could have gone the other way. He averages for the finals 27, 14, and 4. 1985, as the defending champs, averages, 35, 11, and 6 in round 1 in a sweep of Cleveland. Again, he's the defending champ, comes into the playoffs, league MVP again, averages 35 and 11 with 6 assists in round 1 against Cleveland. Against Isaiah and the Pistons in round 2, game 2, to go up 2-0, 42 points, 10 rebounds, 6 assists. And then 43, 13, and 5 to go up 3-2 in a critical game 5. They would win in 6. They dismantled the Sixers in the Eastern Conference Finals, but that Lakers team in 85, nobody was beating them. The Lakers crush them. And, well, crush them is unfair. The Lakers won the series in 6 games. Bird, though, acquitted himself quite nicely. 24 points, 9 rebounds, 5 assists. 1986, then we get there. What many people, not me, but many people consider the best team ever. It's his 3rd straight league MVP. He's going to finish it with another finals MVP. They sweep the Bulls in round 1. You know who's on that Bulls team, right? Michael Jordan. They swept him in round 1. And in Jordan's famous 63-point double overtime game, Larry had 36 points, 12 rebounds, 8 assists. They beat Dominique in Atlanta in round 2, including 20, while averaging 27 points, 10 rebounds, 7 assists. They sweep Milwaukee in the Eastern Conference Finals. He averages 27 points, 9 rebounds, 8 assists, 2 steals. So they're 11-1 en route to the finals. In those finals, they're playing Houston. Remember Akeem from last week? We talked about that Houston team that also had Ralph Sampson. He averages in the finals 24 points, 10 rebounds, 9 assists, is 2 total assists shy, I think it was 2, of averaging a triple-double for the finals, something only LeBron would do later in, NBA history. He has 29 and 12 in Game 6 to win the title. So that's the end of his championships. It's not the end of his great playoff moments. 1987, sweeps Jordan again in round 1. Seems relevant. 32, 14, and 6 to finish off that sweep. To open round 2 against Moncrief and Milwaukee, 40 points, 11 rebounds, 7 assists, 4 steals. And then to go up 3-2 or 3-1 in that series, 42, 7, and 8 in a double overtime victory. And then in Game 7 against Milwaukee, 31, 10, and 8. So think about this for a moment. They win the title in 1984. They lose in the finals in 1985. They win the title in 1986. Bird is league MVP all 3 years, finals MVP twice. Then in 1987, seemingly exhausted, he sweeps Jordan in round 1, goes 7 in round 2 against a very good Milwaukee team, is a monster in the critical games of the series. It opens the series with a 40-point game. It has another 40-point game to go up 3-1. Then, when they lose games 5 and 6 in Game 7, has 31, 10, and 8 to move on to face Detroit. Against Detroit, they're tied with the Pistons, 2-2, averages 36, 10, and 7 in the final 3 games to win that series in 7, including in Game 7, 37, 9, and 9. So that is 4 straight trips to the finals in a period where he's winning all the league MVPs. In the finals, once again, the Lakers were too much. Bird, though, played well again, 24, 10, and 6 for the finals. And that's kind of the end of the road for Boston. It's not the end of the road for Bird. Bird has a few other massive moments. 1988, Detroit beats them after that 7-game war with Dominique, including that's the Dominique's most famous game, the Game 7 loss to Larry, where Larry scored 20 in the fourth quarter and they move on. But Detroit was too much for him. And then in 1989, he has bone spurs and back issues, and that's basically the end. So the reason Bird can't be higher is it's really just a 10-year run. But what an unbelievable 10-year run. For his career, 24, 10, and 7 in the playoffs. The only other person he averaged 24, 10, and 7. The only other person in playoff history to average 20, 10, and 5 is Giannis. Giannis, by the way, I think one day will probably supplant Larry Bird, pass Larry Bird, but hasn't yet. Larry Bird, your 7th greatest player of the last 50 years. Let's go to some Larry Bird callers before we move on.
Hey, Nick, I was just doing a quick Danny Ainge contribution ride where I think about all the things that Danny has contributed to the NBA, and it got me thinking about Larry Bird. I saw you have Larry Bird at 7 on your top 50 list. 7. Really? There are 6 guys better than Larry Bird. You have Luka Legend at 20. How do you only have Larry Legend at 7? Larry's just like Luka, but a much better defender. Plus, besides Danny Ainge, Larry Bird never had a top 20 guy with him. I mean, Magic had Kareem and Kobe had Shaq. Who did Larry Bird have? I gotta get back to my contribution ride, but Larry at 7. That's crazy.
Want to hear one of my favorite Larry Bird stories? Good, because I'm going to tell it to you. At the end of a long road trip, Portland Trailblazers coming up on the schedule, Larry Bird turns to his teammates and says, "You know what, fellas? I'm going to play tomorrow left-handed." And wouldn't you know it, he does. Goes out there and scores 47 points. Not all of them left-handed, but a lot. Then the other day, I saw a video of Larry Bird signing autographs with his left hand. Larry Bird is left-handed. Ruined a memory. I wasn't there. I was 8. But it was on the Larry Bird VHS tapes, and I've incorporated that into my memory bank. So, Nick, did this ruin an all-time great Larry Bird story? Not my telling of it, the idea that he's left-handed.
No, let me respond to Wilds and then Jenna. Larry Bird, much like a couple other all-time greats, LeBron James and myself, writes left-handed but plays sports right-handed. His right hand dominant, but writes and probably eats left-handed. So he is right-handed. He played that game left-handed. He had a lot of legendary stuff. It didn't make, it's not one of the reasons he's top 7 all time, but the 3-point contest thing was pretty legendary. Hell, the McDonald's horse commercials with Jordan from the early 90s, those were pretty legendary. Now, as far as Jenna's point, that he didn't have another all-timer alongside him. That's true. What's also true, though, is he had Tiny Nate Archibald for ring 1, and McHale was there. McHale wasn't great. He had Parrish for basically the entirety of it. He had Walton in 86 along with McHale. It's not like he didn't have excellent teammates. Those Celtics teams were great, even though they didn't have another super-duper star. But, I mean, McHale was, top 35 on our list. Pretty damn good. And so I think I think 7 is perfectly fair to him, especially when you think of the 6 guys who are ahead of him. Number 7 on the list, Larry Bird. Number 6 on the list is a handful of guys who played against him say, no, I actually think he's one of the 2 greatest players ever. We'll discuss him next. What's right? All right, welcome back in. What's Right with Nick Wright, special edition, as we count down the 50 greatest players of the last 50 years. And we are now to the top 6. We just did Larry Bird at number 7. And number 6 is a guy who everyone has an opinion of. And I think even though we all watched his entire career, I think because it overlapped with LeBron, who has all the longevity records and is going to end with all the totals records, the overall longevity and raw numbers of this player, it's almost forgotten by some, not to mention the fact, oh yeah, he won 5 championships. You probably, I guess I could be talking about one of 2 guys, because there are 2 guys yet to be named on this list whose career overlapped with LeBron, whose raw numbers are unbelievable, and who won 5 championships. And it's going to be hotly contested who should be ahead of who. Well, I guess we're about to find out.
Number 6, Kobe Bryant.
So Kobe Bryant's totals and frontline resume stuff, let's just get right to it. 11-time first-team All-NBA. That is the second most ever, tied for the second most ever, behind only LeBron. 2-time second-team All-NBA, 2-time third-team All-NBA, 15 total All-NBA teams. That, again, is tied for the second most ever, behind only LeBron. Now, he only has the 1 league MVP, but 11 times he finished in the top 5. So 11-time first-team All-NBA, 11 top 5 MVP finishes. He is 12-time All-Defense. He is a 2-time scoring champ, including a season where he averaged 35 points per game. He has the 4th most points in NBA history. And some of these numbers here are just bananas. He scored at least 431 times in his career. That is 5.5 full seasons of 30-point games. That's the 5th most ever. He scored at least 122 times in his career. That is the 3rd most ever. He scored at least 25 times in his career. That is the 3rd most ever. He scored at least 6 times in his career. That is the 2nd most ever. He has obviously the 2nd most points in a game ever, the 81-point game against Toronto. And then he also has the game against Dallas where he scored 63 points through 3 quarters. And they asked him, you didn't want to go for 70, try for 80? He's like, no, I'll do that another time. And he did it a few weeks later. So that's the regular season stuff. It's jarring. The postseason stuff, a lot of great, some a little bit of bad. And Kobe versus Duncan is going to be contested, obviously, by virtue of the fact that I haven't said Duncan's name yet. He's ahead of him. One of the deciding factors is Duncan doesn't have as many tough playoff moments as Kobe. I'm not even holding the teenage Kobe stuff against him, but I don't want to focus on Kobe's tough playoff moments. Instead, 6 great players the last 50 years. Over these next 10 minutes, I want to focus on mostly his great playoff moments. He's obviously a 5-time champion, a 7-time finalist, and a 2-time finals MVP. And just like he has the 4th most regular season points ever, he has the 4th most playoff points ever. But let's do it like we've done it for everybody, year by year. So 1997, he's 18 years old. 18 years old. And in round one, he has a 22-point game. 1998, he's 19 years old, also has a 22-point game, but that's about it. Again, he's a literal teenager. You can't hold any, he wasn't that good in that round. Hey, LeBron came in the league as a teenager, didn't make playoffs first couple years. We don't know how he would have done. Not fair. But now we will get to his actual playoff stuff. 1999, finally a starter, because those first 2 years he also wasn't a starter. He's playing real minutes and averages as a 20-year-old in 1999, 20 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists for the playoffs. They get to round two. 2000, his first time in the playoffs as a star, and he played like it. In the playoff run, the run to the championship, Kobe Bryant averaged 21 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists. He was the unquestioned second-best player on a dominant champion. He had 3 30-point games in round one against Sacramento. He was obviously the passer on the historic Kobe to Shaq lob in Game 7 against Portland, including in that game 25 points, 11 rebounds, 7 assists. Again, this is Kobe Bryant at 21 years old on a run to the finals. And here's something that Kobe fans remember, but I think a lot of other folks don't. Game 4 of the finals. So Kobe misses Game 3 with an injury that he suffered in Game 2. He's back in Game 4. That game goes to overtime. The series is only 2-1. Shaq fouls out. Kobe scores 8 points in OT, finishes with 28 for the game, and they go up 3-1, obviously go on to win the championship. And by the way, in Game 6, the title-clinching game, 26 points, 10 rebounds, 4 assists. 2001, though, was when he fully arrived as a top 5 player. That playoff run in 2001. In the playoff run, he averages 29 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists. He's 22 years old. Round 2 against Sacramento, Game 3, 36, 7, and 4. And in Game 4, to finish off the sweep, plays all 48 minutes and has 48 and 16. 48 and 16. 22 years old to finish off the sweep of the Kings. Averages for the series, 35 points, 9 rebounds, 4 assists. Opens the next round. So he closed out Sacramento with 48. Opens the next round with 45 and 10. So that's 93 points in consecutive playoff games for the 0-1 Lakers. To eliminate the Spurs that round, he has 36, 9, and 8. In the finals, he scores 30 twice. Averages for the finals, 25, 8, and 6. The Lakers are 15-1 that playoffs. Some people think it's the greatest team ever. He was dominant. Utterly dominant. He's 22 years old. He was their second best guy. If you want to know why, well, how good was Shaq during that run? Well, go look. The Shaq numbers are cartoonish during these 3 years, but that shouldn't overshadow what Kobe did. 2002, going for the three-peat, opens the playoffs with a 34-point game. For the playoffs, averages 27, 6, and 5. They're kind of coasting until the Western Conference Finals against the Kings, down 3-2. In that famous Game 6, everybody knows the officiating not great, but in the famous Game 6, he has 31, 11, and 5. And Game 7, the OT game, the game where Peja airballed what should have been the game winner, he plays 52.5 of 53 minutes and scores 30, 10, and 7. They needed every last bit of it to get back to the finals. In the finals, which they had no chance. New Jersey was drawing dead against them. He averages 27, 6, and 5, including the key game of those finals was Game 3. You're up 2-0. Is it going to be series? Is it not? Kobe has 36, 6, and 4. They win their third straight title. So that's Kobe Bryant. He's 23 years old. He's 3-time champion. Now I had one of Finals MVP because Shaq, again, refer to the Shaq video. All he did over those 3 years in the finals was average 36 and 16. But Kobe had a key moment in 2000 to win the championship, the game Shaq fouled out of. In 2001, he was utterly fantastic. Back-to-back 45-plus point games and then kicked ass in the finals. And 2002, you could argue that he was, I don't think he was, but one could argue at that point he was third best player in the league. You could argue it was Shaq, Duncan, Kobe. That's how good he was. So now let's go to 2003. They're going for 4 in a row. Obviously, no one's won 4 in a row since Russell's Celtics. Nobody had been to 4 straight at that point in time since Bird's Celtics, right? Or the Celtics and the Lakers in the 80s did it. He's going for 4 in a row. For the playoffs, he averages 32, 5, and 5 in 2003. That's the first playoffs he outplays Shaq. He averages 32, 5, and 5 for the playoffs. He opened the playoffs with 39, 5, and 8. Round 2 against San Antonio, he scores 35 4 times, but they lose in 6. In that playoff run, by the way, Shaq and Kobe combined per game, 60 points, 20 rebounds, 10 assists. The rest of the Lakers, though, were not up to the task. That was, Spurs were better. Spurs deserved to win. So instead of, going for a 4th straight, they're out in round 2 to San Antonio. The team was gassed. 0-4. They're down 2-1 to the defending champion Spurs in round 2. Kobe has 42, 6, and 5. That's his first 40-point game since the back-to-back ones in the playoffs, that is, that we just talked about in 0-1. He gets back to the finals, beating Garnett and Minnesota in the Western Conference Finals. They lose to Detroit, and if we're being fair, he has a rough finals. He has one good game and their one win, 33, 4, and 7. But for the finals, averages 23 points, 3 rebounds, 4 assists on just 38% shooting. And now Shaq's gone. And now it's a bit of a wasteland for a little bit. 05, they missed the playoffs in the middle of his prime. Not great. 06, this is a weird one. Because the 06 first round has a couple of his best moments and then his arguably worst moment of his career. So 06 first round against Phoenix, game 4. He hits a layup to end regulation and force overtime and a buzzer beater in overtime where he does the famous Michael Jordan pantomime fist pump celebration. That puts them up 3-1. Game 5, they lose. Game 6, Kobe scores 50. 50 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists. But they lose in overtime. Game 7 is the rough moment. He's angry about game 6. He scores 50 and they lose. He scores 23 in the first half, but only had 1 assist in that first half, and they're down by 15. Something happened at halftime in the locker room about Kobe needing to pass more. So in the second half of that game, he refuses to shoot. In the second half of a game 7 of a series, they were up 3-1 in, where Kobe had a buzzer beater to win a game, a 50-point game and a loss. Second half, he takes 3 shots, scores 1 point on a technical free throw, and they lose by 20 plus. So now it's Shaq's gone. You're missed the playoffs out in round 1. Now we're to 07. Phoenix again in round 1, down 0-2. Kobe keeps them alive by scoring 45, 6, and 6, but they lose in 5 anyway. Kobe averaged 33, 5, and 4. Then there's the career crossroads. The famous, he went on Stephen A. Smith's radio show, floated that he wanted to be traded, trashed some of his teammates in that parking lot video, and the Lakers don't trade him. Instead, they trade for Powell, and now, boom. Kobe finally has a legitimate team around him, and what do? They make 3 straight finals. 49, 4, and 10 in game 2 of a round 1 sweep of Carmelo and AI in Denver. Averages 33, 7, and 7 in round 2 against Utah, scoring at least 33 in 5 of the 6 games. 39 points to get back to the finals and close out the Spurs. Again, the defending champion Spurs. In the finals, averages 26, 5, and 5, including 36 and 7, but Boston wins in 6. Averaged 36 and 6 for the playoffs. 30 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists. But he's back in the finals, and obviously the next 2 years they would win the title. Well, again, his long career, we gotta go year by year on it. 09 for the playoff run. Averages 30 points, 5 rebounds, 6 assists. In round 1, game 4 against Utah, 38 and 6 to go up 3-1. 40-point game in game 2 of round 2 against Houston. That was a weird series. That Houston team had no business taking the Lakers 7, but they did, but the Lakers won. In 7, obviously. Magnificent in the Western Conference Finals against Carmelo. Carmelo's best and only real chance to make the finals. Averaged 34, 6, and 6. Had 2 40-point games and a game of 35, 6, and 10 in those Western Conference Finals. He opens the finals with 40 points, 8 rebounds, 8 assists. He averages 32 points per game for the series for his first finals MVP. And I would argue, and I think most people would argue, the most important ring of his career up to that point. It tied Shaq. That was a real rivalry at that point in time. It proved you could win it without Shaq. But did Kobe Bryant rest? Oh, no, of course not. Kobe Bryant wasn't the type to rest. Very next year, they win it again. So in round 1, they're playing the Young Thunder. He has 32, 7, and 3 to beat OKC in game 6. That was the Powell tip-in game. That's another sliding doors moment. If Powell doesn't get that tip-in, that thing goes 7. Does OKC knock out the defending champ Lakers? I don't know, but they don't. Kobe has 32, 7, and 3. They escape in round 1 against OKC. Round 2, they sweep Utah. Kobe scores 30 in all 4 games, or at least 30. Opened the Western Conference Finals with 45 and 5 against Phoenix. Averages 34, 7, and 8 for the series to get to his 3rd straight finals. Second time in his career has been to 3 straight finals. Won his 2nd straight finals MVP. Averages 29, 8, and 4 for the series. And yes, we all know he was 6 of 24 in game 7. But the idea that someone else should have been finals MVP that year when he averaged 29, 8, and 4 was nuts. So from 08 to 2010, made the finals all 3 years, won 2 titles. His playoff averages across those 3 years, 30 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists. And then it's basically over. 2011, he's swept by Dallas in round 2, averages 23 points for the playoffs. 2012, he has one final burst in him. Final 3 playoff games of his career, playing the Thunder of 2012, the Thunder that would go on to the finals. He has 36, 7, and 6, 38, 8, and 5, and 42.5 rebounds, 0 assists in his final playoff game ever, which is a little fitting in a good way, similar to Kobe's final regular season game ever being the iconic 60-point game. And so that's the career. So 88 career 30-point playoff games. That is the 3rd most ever, behind only MJ and LeBron. 13 career 40-point playoff games. That's the 6th most ever. And a career playoff average of 26, 5, and 5 for the 6th greatest player of the last 50 years. The late, great Kobe Bryant. Let's go to some Kobe Bryant caller before we wrap it up.
Kobe at number 6. Fun fact about Kobe Bryant. He's the only player in the top 10-ish discussion who won multiple championships without a top 75 teammate. When he won his last 2 with Pau Gasol, Gasol did not make the top 75. That puts Kobe in a class by himself in regards to championships. Michael, LeBron, Shaq, Kareem, you can go on and on. None of them won multiple titles without a top 75 teammate like Kobe did. Props.
Nick, appreciate you having me on the podcast, bro. You know, over your career, I've had a lot of takes that I have vehemently disagreed with, but none more than you saying that Kobe is on this list of greatest players to never be the best player in the NBA. And I'm just trying to imagine a world where, let's just take Luka Doncic, who you have top 20 on this list, starts a 3-year run next year where he wins a league MVP, goes to 3 straight NBA finals, wins 2 championships, 2 finals MVPs. Just me trying to imagine you going on first things first and not declaring he's the best player in the world. You know and I know it would not happen, which is so fascinating because that is exactly what Kobe did from 2008 to 2010. So yes, he was the best player in the league, and I get LeBron historically is better and took that torch from him. But in those 3 years, he was the best player in the league, and you got to give him some love for that. So that's a small little correction you got to make. But appreciate you having my big dog high on this list. RIP to the Black Mamba.
Okay, so I want to comment on what Ty said there, because what Ty is referring to is something I've said in the past. I did not say in that video, which was I have said the prestigious make-believe best player alive title belt, that it has only ever been held in NBA history by the following people: Bill Russell and Wilt Chamberlain in the 60s, Kareem almost the entirety of the 70s, Moses Malone briefly, late 70s to early 80s, Larry Bird in the mid 80s, Magic Johnson after that, Michael Jordan obviously in the early 90s, Akeem Olajuwon, then back to Jordan. After Jordan that time it was Shaq, then Duncan. This is the part Ty gets upset about. Then LeBron to Giannis. He argues that it went Duncan to Kobe to LeBron. He makes the point that from 08 to 10, the guy I have as the best player alive, LeBron, won 0 championships. Kobe won 2 of them. I understand that part of it. My issue is I think LeBron became the best player in the NBA in 2007 at 22 years old when he carried that team to the NBA Finals with the 48 special against Detroit. Now, some would say, Nick, you're biased towards LeBron. I don't think I am, but so be it. The addendum I would have is this. If LeBron didn't actually become the best player in the league until 2010, then it would be Kobe Bryant. Either way, there's a lot of guys on our list, on our top 50, in our top 15, Durant, Steph, that also have not been best player alive. Hell, I don't want to spoil anything. I'm trying to think other guys that would be on here who's super high. Isaiah Thomas, the top 15 guy, never best player alive. So it wouldn't be bad company, but I understand what Ty is saying. Also, though, I mentioned Duncan being the best player. We are also now to the top 5. We have not said Tim Duncan's name, and we just did Kobe's name, which means by definition, I have Duncan ahead of Kobe. Duncan will be coming up shortly on this list. It will cause massive consternation from folks that I have Duncan ahead of Kobe. We will discuss that to wrap the show as another special episode of What's Right with Nick Wright, the 50 greatest players of the last 50 years, continues right after this. All right, welcome back in. What's Right with Nick Wright, the special edition, 50 greatest players of the last 50 years. We just gave you number 6, Kobe Bryant. So that means the 5 people left on the list, and I'll try to just say them alphabetically, would be Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I got to think of who they are and how the alphabet works. LeBron James, Magic Johnson. Oh, no, I forgot how the alphabet works. Michael Jordan and Tim Duncan. Those are your 5 guys. There is a hotly contested debate, is Kobe or Duncan. We have a caller that wants to chime in on that and might give you a little sneak preview into some of our Duncan stuff coming up in the weeks ahead. Here's the caller.
Hey, Nick. So you don't know me, but after I saw your list that came out, I had to hit my Rolodex and find someone who did know you so that they could deliver this video of me telling you how off your rocker you are for ranking Tim Duncan ahead of Kobe Bryant. Now, yes, they both have 5 NBA championships, so it's pretty close, but I just want to remind you of the situation that Kobe was walking into. He had to win that first 3 championships with Shaquille O'Neal, who constant battles between who is number 1 of that team, whose team it was, which ended in Shaq leaving for the Heat. And then Kobe, was he done? Did he need Shaq? No, he didn't. What he did was he won one with Andrew Bynum and with Metta World Peace, 2 of them, as a matter of fact. So let's compare that to Tim Duncan, who just moseyed himself into the league and won those, but with a well-respected organization that rarely has any drama, led by the greatest coach of all time, Greg Popovich. So let's look at that stability versus all the hurdles that Kobe Bryant had to overcome to have the same amount of championships.
Okay, listen, I'm not going to use this time to tear down Kobe. I was called him the 6th greatest player of the last 50 years. But that's some of the most revisionist history I've ever heard. The idea that Kobe won the 2 championships with Bynum and Metta World Peace and did not mention Pau Gasol's name is crazy. To say that Duncan had this massive advantage of a great coach in Greg Popovich when Kobe's coach for all of his championships was Phil Jackson is outrageous. And to act like going to a team with Shaquille O'Neal was a detriment as opposed to a guaranteed finals berth, which gave Kobe so much of the experience. And as we just discussed, how great he was, particularly in the 01 and 02 finals. It's just nonsense. They just total and utter revisionist history nonsense. I'm not saying it's nonsense to say you think Kobe's ahead of Duncan. I obviously disagree. But those arguments fall on deaf ears to me. Tim Duncan will be showing up shortly in our series, and I think I might be able to prove to America why having him as one of the 5 best players of the last 50 years is not an overreach at all. We'll talk to you guys about that next week as we continue our countdown of the 50 greatest players of the last 50 years on What's Right. Hey, thanks for watching. Smash or just lightly tap that subscribe button. It all works the same. To get more from the show, and make sure you click. Why don't you want to mash the bell too, guys? Or just, lightly tap the bell to get notified every time new content drops. Check out full episodes of What's Right wherever you get your podcasts, or just hit the link in the description below.